Hello everybody, welcome to Bad Big Games, where we talk about all things PlayStation and games. I'm your host Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about PlayStation's Wall Street Journal article and Sony's hardcore strategy. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, Future Joe, start the show. So let's talk about this Wall Street Journal article that everybody's talking about. This article, PlayStation outlines its game plan for the next generation and what it feels like the next generation of consoles are going to look like, and just the landscape in general of gaming is going to look like. So walking into this article, I have to say, Sony this year has kind of been radio silent, right? You saw Google Stadia with their Stadia Connect and their big reveal a few months ago and a few weeks ago. E3 had the Xbox Scarlet reveal and xCloud, and my outlook in the next generation, pretty positive. Like, I'm not getting Stadia, but I'm happy it exists. Xbox Scarlet has me intrigued for the first time in a very long time, and PlayStation still is my go-to console this generation, my go-to place to play. So walking in, knowing that Sony's been a bit radio silent, I kind of like how they've been silent. Though you don't need to say anything if you don't have anything to back that up with. So I really like the choice of going to places like Wired or the Wall Street Journal to trickle out information to get us hardcore players really invested on what's going on. So walking in, I'm pretty level-headed about the PlayStation 5 so far. And with that, let's break this article down into 4 parts. Let's start with numero freaking uno. What does Sony think its threats are going into the next generation is? Because last generation, we were all afraid that mobile was going to be the way that we were all going to game. Remember that? Mobile was the future, and though it is definitely a huge part of the marketplace, consoles still exist. PlayStation 4s are selling like hotcakes, right? So walking in, Sony thinks that numero uno, Microsoft, is its main threat. That's not surprising to any of us. Microsoft's been singing Kumbaya a lot, that we can all game on anything we want, where Sony is kind of being more level-headed, more business-esque approach of, no. Listen, Microsoft, you have your physical box that competes with our physical box. We're competition. And Sony sees Microsoft as long-term. They're not going anywhere. Now, where things get really, really weird is where they think Google Stadia is. They view Google Stadia as a mid-tier threat, as a mid to long-term competition. It goes to show that not even Sony thinks that Stadia has what it takes to last a good 10 years. They see it as competition in the first 5 years and kind of seeing how it goes, but even them are kind of skeptical about how well Stadia is going to do in its first few opening years. And then you have Nintendo, and they don't view Nintendo as a threat. They don't go after the same type of market share that Nintendo goes after. They're 2 totally different platforms, and same way of how I feel about them. Nintendo's just Nintendo. They do whatever they want, while all these other companies start trying to reinvent the wheel. Nintendo just does what Nintendo does. So what's PlayStation's battle plan here? What's their strategy? We know their threats. What are they going to plan to do about it? And that's where the article gets really interesting, because Sony's approach is really simple. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They actually have an awesome graph showing you how much money PlayStation makes Sony, and it's over 1/3 of the business overall. So Sony is relevant because PlayStation exists. So they're going to be funneling a ton of investment money into PlayStation to make sure that PlayStation prints them the continuous cash that it has been over the past few years. So they're saying, you know what? Let Microsoft, let Google chase this theoretical 200 million customer mark. As we figure out, streaming on the back end with PlayStation Now, we're going to focus on the here and now on the physical console. It's worked for us. We're going to focus on the devoted fans, and we're going to get those blockbuster hits that are going to get butts in seats. So pretty much the game plan is keep making your publishing brand strong, keep putting out games like God of War, keep putting out quality games like Last of Us, Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, Bloodborne 2, let's bank on it. That's what they're thinking is going to sell the console overall. They are going after the hardcore gamer. They are going after the people like me who isn't sold on streaming. They just want an awesome living room experience. It's kind of like what Andrew House said a few years back. You know, Switch is great, portability is great, but we're going to focus on what we're good at, and they're good at the living room experience. So this game plan does speak to me, but there is a worrying thing, and that's where they talk about indies. That's where a lot of concern comes. So I'm just going to read the quote outright. So the first quote reads like this: Sony still welcomes games from independent studios, the first Sony official said, but the emphasis is on strengthening relationships with large publishers. And since resources are limited, the thinking is, the official said, that people buy consoles to play high-quality games available only on that platform, not smaller games also available on smartphones. Yikes. Then the next quote states this: the second Sony official said that he expected smaller games would still be released on PlayStation even without extensive Sony support, because the popularity of the PlayStation makes the platform hard for smaller developers to ignore. Now, those quotes are a really hard pill to swallow, but I think there is some truth to them. I hate the feeling, and it's said back in the article, that some indies feel snubbed by PlayStation. I don't like that feeling. I hate seeing Sony kind of sounding arrogant again. And when Sony sounds arrogant, bad things happen. But it is true to an extent, right? Like, did you buy a PlayStation for God of War, Uncharted, Bloodborne, for Spider-Man, or did you buy it for Guacamelee and Resogun? And the answers are going to lean, I bought it for the AAA experience. I think when we look at the climate that is 2019 Sony versus the climate that was 2013 Sony, they're two different companies at this point. And though indies helped elevate the console back in 2013, what's elevating the Sony brand right now is the exclusives, is Horizon Zero Dawn, is God of War. So when I see what Sony's saying, I understand it. I just hate the messaging in the second quote where it's, yeah, you know, you're still come here because it's PlayStation. I don't like that. And with that said, it gets to our other point where it's all about making relationships with third-party publishers and second-party publishers, making deals with big studios. That is Sony's big game plan headed into the next generation is, yeah, listen, again, Guacamelee, great, but we want Avengers, right? It's those deals that we're seeing with Destiny, with Avengers. Hell, even like Final Fantasy VII, we don't even know if that's an exclusive or just a really long timed exclusive. That's what Sony wants to make sure they seal the deal with the next generation. And with that, makes me a little uncomfortable because as much as I'm a PlayStation fanboy, don't get me wrong, I'm a Sony pony, I don't like the feeling that Sony's just going to pay Square Enix X amount of dollars to lock out a character or a skin that could have been in any other platform. It's just Sony paid for that skin, and that's why I'm getting it and not the Xbox guy. I don't like that, but it's an unfortunate reality is that those things work. And with that, we get to our last talk, and that is on acquisitions. And this is actually a quote from Jim Ryan, the president and CEO of PlayStation, and it states the following: "Content is becoming more important than ever before," he said. "Companies new to the games industry are looking into the market with hope is something we definitely welcome. Sony Interactive Entertainment has 25 years of experience in the video game industry and has big assets." So with that, a lot of people are taking these quotes either from the Wall Street Journal or the one I just read, saying that, yeah, no, Sony's also looking to enter the market and to see if they can buy anything. Like Microsoft has bought so many studios. Ones that come to mind, people like Double Fine, that used to be big partners with PlayStation, now bought by Xbox, right? Ninja Theory, right? Hellblade used to be touted as some type of kind of esque console exclusive, maybe sorta on Sony's stage. Now it's on everything, so, and bought out by Microsoft. So people are stating that these quotes mean Sony's just gonna open up their wallet and start buying every other developer in the sun. And I think that's a fun video to make, and we'll definitely make that video. But I also think that it's not as big of a deal as so many people are making it. I think the deals that they're talking about are what I stated earlier. When it comes to the big, third-party companies like an EA or Activision, Sony's not paying EA to make an exclusive Star Wars game. They're not paying Activision to make an exclusive Crash game. They're paying Activision to make exclusive Crash content in their games, right? They're paying EA to make exclusive Star Wars content in their game. That's why you got that VR experience a few years back with Battlefront 2. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about, hey, EA, go make me Skate 4 exclusive on PlayStation 5. They're not talking about that whatsoever. What I do think is you're going to be making deals with more second-party studios, like we're probably going to get a Bloodborne 2, fingers crossed. Definitely going to see a Spider-Man 2. We're definitely going to see them maybe even partner with Platinum Games. You're going to see them wheel and deal more than buying studios because they don't need to. They have companies like Sucker Punch, companies like Bend, Naughty Dog, Santa Monica that are making them a ton of money by promoting these big, huge blockbuster games. So at the end of the day, all this sounds great. I really like the game plan that Sony has, which is we're just going to make a bigger, stronger console. And at the end of the day, that's kind of just what I want. I just want a console that has steady 4K, 60 FPS, and I'm a happy camper. I love my single player experiences I'm getting from Sony, and they're doubling down on that. It seems to work for them. They want to continue doing that with the PlayStation 5, and I'm on board. I just want to see what crossplay is going to be like on PlayStation. That's my big thing, is how are you going to adapt to the climate that people want better digital returns, though you're starting, people want better cross-play functionality. I want to play with my Xbox friends. How are you going to deal with those things? Those are the big questions I actually want answered, because I have no doubt you're going to make really great games because your track record for the most part of this generation has been pretty spot on. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, my thoughts is the hardcore strategy from Sony, I'm liking it so far. Is it going to pay off? We'll see. But I want to know what you guys and gals think down below. What do you think of Sony's strategy? What did you think about everything stated here? Are you on board? Are you skeptical? Are you mad? Let me know in the comment section down below. There are no wrong answers, because here at Bad Big Games, it's all about the conversation. And if you like news videos like these, rants, first impressions, or even should you buys a trophy room podcast, well then please hit like, share, subscribe. It helps me out, grows this big beautiful family that I call home, because that's what it's all about here. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, keep your wits about you and have a nice one.